Thank you so much, guys. Al, Leif, Joe, and Beck as well, right, for organizing this no-code meetup. Do you guys like to say a word or something like that? Maybe if anyone wants to introduce themselves, go for a quick chat, and then I can just jump into a few demos and we can take a look at some Coda docs.
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to from the no-code sort of meetup group part on it. So yeah, it's been a quiet a few months from all of us. I think yeah, we've all been just trying to adapt to everything that's been going on. You know, particularly everyone down in Melbourne. So it's really nice to, you know, when you approached us and I've sort of seen and heard some of the things you've been doing, to have someone really keen to come out and you know, bring us back to life and get the group going again. So from my perspective, really, really excited to see what you've been working on. It's been a crazy sort of, feels like, you know, few months from a no code perspective. There's a heap more tools that are out there that people are getting their hands on. I'm hearing so many more, not just side projects, but ways that it's being integrated into, you know, larger companies. You know, the company that Joel and myself work at alone, we're hiring for 2 no-coder roles. So it's really, really exciting to, you know, the direction we're going in. And I think being able to hear firsthand from someone who's living and breathing it and solving real world problems is going to be valuable for all of us.
Nice, man. I think I lost you for a second, Leif. Still there? Cool. I might just jump right in. So thank you so much, guys. Leif, you back? Sorry, man.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
It's been like a...
I'm just gonna jump right in. I've actually set up a quick kind of presentation just so we have some sort of agenda to go through. I'm just gonna quickly share my screen. Please let me know if you guys have any technical problems, mic, video, or screen. So welcome to the Coda APAC meetup, December 2020. We are really just trying to get our feeling of what this community looks like here in Melbourne. So if there's anyone out there using Coda or something similar to Coda, and if you can start to open it up, this communication channel. And I've been using Coda for roughly a year now. And my background is actually engineering in urban planning. I have no software engineering background, no web development background whatsoever, but I've always been interested in technology and this kind of stuff. I actually moved to Melbourne a couple of years ago, looking forward to go through a career change. And I did a web development bootcamp, which was fascinating. And right after that, ended up getting a job at the makerspace. So I didn't have the chance to use the skills I learned through the bootcamp. And halfway through working here at the makerspace, I was faced with a few challenges, mainly because we are a really small startup. Our team is really, really small. We don't really have the human capacity to be running full-on operations here. And automation was a must if you wanted to survive. So bouncing off some ideas with my boss, we decided to give no-code a crack. Instead of hiring developers and building things from scratch, we just tried to start from day one with a no-code approach. And something I've learned using Coda was that most no-code tools that I was finding out there were mainly built for people who already know how to code. And we're just looking forward to find something that would streamline their day-to-day work. So by not having a full-on software developer background, I found myself in a position that I still had to educate myself quite a lot to use most of the no-code tools. But when we bumped into Coda quite accidentally a year or so ago, we saw the opportunity of using a tool that was built up from a no-code perspective. And our team, I'm an engineer, my boss is an engineer, but everyone else here is either a furniture designer or a photographer, people from fine art backgrounds, so they have no computational skills whatsoever. And trying to bring everyone to the same page, everyone on the boat to use these tools would require this approach, would require this idea of building something with the eyes of someone who doesn't have the coding background or a programmer background or software developer or even an engineering background in a general sense. And the idea that when we used Coda, we could break it down into smaller chunks and make it digestible, and our team could learn through this process without having to educate themselves into programming, languages, and this kind of stuff. And the main objective here was really to create agency on our team. We were 4 people. Now we are 7, kind of 8 people. We have a few casuals and part-timers as well. But everyone has to have the agency to jump on the documents and use them in a way that they feel empowered to use them. And what we found out is by having clunky, developed from scratch tools, a lot of people are just put off by it. So they don't really adopt the tool and they're not using to the extent that we would expect it to be used. And moreover, we just realized that using no-code tools, more specifically Coda, we could change things really fast. We've been changing core things on our business. So we've been changing our business model. We've been changing the way we sell products. We've been trying to find product market fit because we are a startup. We've been trying to find market message resonance as well. So testing channels, mediums, products, audiences, and all this kind of stuff takes quite a lot of time. So having to jump on an Excel spreadsheet every day or having to jump into a database and having to tweak this kind of stuff, even if it's just a few hours a day, it takes a toll on you. And if you're changing that fast, just by going back to developers or outsourcing that to Fiverr or Upwork was a pain in the ass because we could make a change in half an hour, but would have to wait for 2 or 3 weeks to get the change made by a developer overseas or to Fiverr or Upwork. And by using a no-code tool from day 0 from scratch, we could change it really fast. And that made all of the difference for us. And of course, connectivity. Whenever I'm looking forward to get a new SaaS, for instance, any kind of tool that we're going to use out there, the first thing I do is I check Zapier to see if there's a Zap that I can use. Otherwise, it will make our life much, much harder. That's pretty much it. I just tried to went through a brief explanation of what Coda is and why I decided to use it for our day-to-day operations. Feel free to hit me up and ask questions as well. I don't want to go on a rant here because we only have, 15 minutes, half an hour. I know most people are here during their lunch break, so might as well just jump into the demos. And I might just open up the demo here. Bear in mind, this is mock data. I'm not using real data here because we have members in our makerspace. So we are a makerspace. We operate on a subscription basis, and people pay a monthly fee to access our space, just like a gym. And we were not really sure what kind of information we wanted to track. Basic information, of course, name, email, phone, etc. But at some point, we decided that we needed as well an emergency contact. Because if someone has a problem here at the makerspace, if they faint or something like that, we have to have easy access to that. So when we started to build up our database, it was pretty much an Excel spreadsheet. And on top of that, by using a no-code tool such as Coda, we could easily create new fields. So as soon as we realized that we needed to have emergency contacts, we could just come right here and create a new field, which was emergency contact, and we started to track that information as well. Our sign-up process is done through Webflow, so it's just a form, and I like to use Zapier to connect that information to our Coda table. And that's quite straightforward. That's something that can be quite very easily done by any developer. You don't even need to know programming languages to be able to use Webflow or any kind of no-code website builder. But then the magic here for us was really being able to add these fields on the go. For instance, we created one view from that original table that shows the person's photo, which they have to upload when they're going through the sign-up process, their names, and their emergency contact. So the idea here is that whenever a technician is working at the makerspace, if they need to have easy access to that information, emergency contact and number, they can just jump right in here and that's what they see. So they're only seeing the information that they need to see. Picture, the person's name, emergency contact phone. But that table has a lot of information besides that, right? So we can create, what we're doing now is we are creating filters, such as training. We are providing training so people can use all of our machines here, things like laser cutters, power tools, we have a CNC router, 3D printer, etc. And these machines or tools, they require the member to be trained. And the idea is that by having that same database but with a different filter, our technicians can quite easily see someone's picture and which machines and tools they are allowed to use. So here, that would be me with a Kramer picture. I'm allowed to use the laser cutter because I went through the process of being trained how to safely operate. And if someone is using the laser cutter, a technician can just quickly open up this, take a quick look and see, oh, that guy's using the laser cutter. He shouldn't be using it. If John is using the laser cutter, they know that John shouldn't be using that machine or tool. They can approach the person and just try to understand the situation from there. But the idea here is that by having that database built up in a way that it's really modular, we can keep adding that information here. And we can create views in which different people can see those views and understand that information in a different way. Not necessarily understand information in a different way, but only see the information that pertains to them on that specific moment. So the idea here is that if we, for instance, buy a new tool, like a 3D printer, you can really just add a new column here. And in this case, I like using a checkbox. And we actually have a form, a SurveyMonkey form that a person has to go through after the training. And if they go through the form and they have a positive assessment, I just use a Zapier to find this row and change this from false to true automatically. So the idea is that when we are building this database here, we are discussing internally what kind of information we think we should have attached each member: training, emergency contact, email, street address, and this kind of stuff. And by being able to quickly come in here and just add that field, we allow ourselves to have those kind of discussions on the fly. So we are here to make our space pretty much every day. We try to observe what people are doing. We try to talk to our technicians to understand what are their pain points. And based on those conversations, we can easily implement this kind of stuff with a no-code tool test, or even just kill it. If we think that this doesn't really add much, we just delete it, and that's pretty much it. So by using this kind of stuff to create a database from scratch and have modularity, we gave ourselves a lot of power, but we also give a lot of power to our technicians in place. Because it's not fair to ask people to communicate their pain points through user stories or things that developers will understand if they haven't been trained on that specific skill set. So by using a no-code tool from scratch, you're just giving your team that has no technical skills a lot of power. That's what we've noticed back here. That's what we're using for our internal members database. It is already slightly different than that. I just created a copy a couple of weeks ago, and I've removed all of the sensitive data. I'm just using mock data here. But if anyone's curious to ask what else we're doing on top of the database, I'm more than free to share. I just can't really share my screen with the original doc here because of sensitive information. But that's just one of the docs. That's members database. We've also been using Coda for, oh yeah, that's something else that we're using that for as well. When reporting, we create different docs with views from that specific database to see how many members we have. So we have internal discussions regarding how fast we want to grow, which means how many members we want to acquire every week or every month, and what's our churn rate as well. So that's more internal business decision that we want to have based on the budget that we have and the goals that we are looking forward to achieve. But it's just a pain in the ass to be bouncing off some ideas, asking these questions to each other, and you have to open up a database, check it out, filter, or do something like that. So by using Coda, we just create views from that that specific table, and we can create specific charts or some sort of information that makes our life much easier, so we can have discussions much faster. We use it for day-to-day operations as well. Our general manager, I can't really show you the original doc right now, but I got some screenshots and removed any kind of sensitive information. Our general manager, she roasts our team of technicians using Google Calendar. And I've just created an integration here in Coda that shows that calendar to the whole team. So every time someone wakes up, gets to work, they often open up this running sheet to check what's happening on any given day. And that's just a tiny nudge here so they know they've logged to the right doc. Because what used to happen is someone left their login there and they'll be checking someone else's view. So good morning, the person who logged today. And that's pulled from the Google Calendar with the roster. So anyone knows who's working at the makerspace at any given day. And it looks like that pretty much. We also have a lot of calendars running around so people can book tours. Some of our members, they have to book the safety inductions that I've mentioned before, and that's all done through another no-code tool that we use called Circle. And we have embedded calendars so our members can self-book their visits. So whenever someone's signing up for the first time, and whenever someone is going for a training or anything like that, it just populates this table automatically from the Google Calendar, which is populated from the Calendly entry. I know it sounds a little bit cumbersome and overwhelming, but we've been implementing this as we started operations, because we would have people coming over for a sign up or a training, and our technicians wouldn't be really across, and they'll be asking questions to our general manager, which was really busy with something else. So based on the questions that our technicians were asking, like, oh, who is coming for a sign up today? How many people we have for training at 6 p.m.? We decided to get that information from the calendar, which is hidden underneath a few layers of abstraction, and just populate it here on the running sheet so all of our technicians could have easy access. So that always go back to giving agency to the people that we are working with. And the idea is that whenever someone asks a question, it's because they have a pain point. And we just try to unpack that question in a way that we try to overlap that pain point with the tools that we have, the no-code tools that we have. Because as I've mentioned before, our goal is to go no-code from day one. So by understanding the pain point and explaining how the tool works, nowadays, after a year that we've been using Coda, most of our technicians, they come over and say, oh, do you know that feature in Coda? What do you think about implementing that for, I don't know, something like meetups as well? Because we often have meetups here at least once a month. And a technician could come and say, oh, we have to close up the shop half an hour before the meetup because we have to remove all of the power tools or blades and this kind of stuff. What do you think about putting up that information on the running sheet as well? And they know that we have that specific technical capability to solve that pain point. We use that for procurement as well. So our general manager, they request tools here. And the beauty of this doc is it's just huge and cumbersome, but each person has a different view. So our accountant person pretty much, which is not really here, they have a budget. And whenever the general manager requests, that's what the manager sees. And they can request tools from here. But that's what the accountant sees. It's the same table, but with a different view, which shows different rows from that specific table based on a few filters. And that's what our accountant sees as well. And we have different classes and different items. So we can segment a specific database respecting all of the hierarchy that we wanted to respect and still create different views for different people. Our workshop manager, which works on the field, and he's almost 70 years old, he's not really that tech savvy. That's pretty much what he sees. He wants to check the stock. So if someone asks, hey, workshop manager, we have a marking knife. You can check it out. Yeah, we have two. Let me check it out over there. Let me get it for you. So by creating this original database, let's say, and creating different views for different roles, we are removing a lot of the decision fatigue, and we are just making the learning curve much more accessible. And for reporting, it helps quite a lot as well. So after some time, you can categorize our spending based on that original database, which was approved and purchased. So everything that I've showed you guys right here, that's the same table. It's just filtered in different ways. And you can create different charts. Of course, there are the limitations that every no-code tool would have. But if you understand what the limitations are, that's the first step towards good design. Because if you can define your constraints and you can share with your team what the constraints are, you can always create something that everyone's happy with. And we do use it for reporting as well. So as I've mentioned before, we often have a few KPIs and we decide a few things on the fly. Pretty much every quarter we change what our growth rate looks like, especially during these lockdown times, since we're a physical space. And what I've done here is I've just used our subscription management tool, which is ChargeBee, and I connected it with Coda using Zapier, and I've created a few charts based on that. So pretty much every week, I've actually created an automation that sent out an email every Monday morning as well. So we closed Monday morning here at the workshop. So me and my boss, we just get an email Monday morning, take a quick look and see if we had hit or if we hadn't hit our goals for that previous week and start our Monday stand-up from there. So it really streamlined the process of having to check for data. Now we decided that we want the data to come to us. And what we have to discuss is how fast we can grow, how many people we want to acquire every week, and this kind of stuff. But we don't have to worry that much about the technicalities of looking for the data and trying to answer those questions. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for coping with me. I know that was a little bit longer than I expected. And I've just tried to mash up everything into 15 or 20 minutes, but there's a lot to unpack there. So if anyone has any questions, just hit me up.
For your team, what was the learning curve like? Sorry, Lee. For your team, what was the learning curve like to get them? Obviously, you're the doc maker, but to get them sort of up to speed and sort of advocates for it. How long did it take?
Dude, that's a really good question. It's such a fascinating thing to unpack. I would say that it took us about 3 months to go through the education process of getting people used to using Coda. Back at the time, it wasn't that mobile friendly as well, to be honest, as it is nowadays. So we had to create a few other adjacent approaches to make people more susceptible to using it. For instance, we created, as part of our opening up procedure here at the Makerspace, we asked our technicians to use the front desk computer and set up a few things. But I've got my the Chrome on that computer set up in a way that whenever they turn on the computer, Chrome runs and the running sheet was open on the spot. So that would be the first thing they would see. So there was a little bit of a nudge there in terms of acceptance. But when it comes to the technicality, it was really straightforward because you can even create docs in a way that tables can be shown as cards or even different things. And it's almost verbatim as well. You can have information, for instance, if I had 4 people coming for a tour, instead of having a table, something like that, I could have a table somewhere to have a filter that would say, good morning, and then ampersand, Joe. Today, we will have 4 people coming for a tour, and the 4 would be a variable, you know what I mean? So we went from an almost English-like kind of approach to it, almost verbatim, to a slightly more technical as we educated our team on how to use the tool. But the short answer is maybe 2 or 3 months, everyone was up to speed.
Great, thank you.
No worries, man.
I've got a couple of questions. Just first one, do you expose the data back to the users? So like, for example, me, if I'm a member of it, I want to remind myself what I've been trained on. Is there a way for that to happen at this point?
So there are a few answers to that question, Leif, and that's a really good question because we've been discussing that internally as well. Our members, they don't see anything we do in Coda. That's for internal purposes only. We use another no-code tool called Circle. I'm not sure if you've used Circle before. We use Circle as our community portal. And we are just looking forward to do something like that, but not in Coda. But get the information from Coda and show that in Circle. What we've been doing right now is that we've been creating tags in Circle that are created based on the Coda information, but it's not on our roadmap to show the Coda docs to our members because we have another tool for that, so we might as well just stick to it.
Yeah, that's great. If you can use that the Coda side is sort of like the back end, and then just display that information elsewhere. It makes a lot of sense. The other question I had was just around costing of it, like how much it costs you for the setup that you have, and whether you've done any sort of analysis to see how much money you've saved by using a tool like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, man. Our setup is pretty much Coda and Zapier for these no-code tools. We use ChargeBee as well for subscription management, but we don't pay for it because we are still under the threshold that you have to pay. I think Coda right now, we might be paying something around $80 a month or so. In Zapier, I think we just swapped the heavier plan, which is about $100 a month. So right now it's less than $200 a month. And the whole setup in terms of developing the docs, I've built all of the docs myself, me and my boss, and I haven't tracked how many hours I've spent on that. There was definitely a learning curve there, but I would start with the hypothesis that just by the sheer time that it takes to build up a doc in Coda, the time it takes to develop something using tools that require coding, we're already saving time. We're already saving money with that. And for the monthly fees, it's hard to say, but we don't see $180 as a massive expenditure for us right now. In the agency that we have by using Coda, it just gives us so much peace of mind and so much not free time, but time that we use for things that we judge are more important right now. Because as a startup, we're not that focused on building right now that much. We're much more focused on finding product market fit, market message resonance, and of course, raising, which is quite important as well. So getting some early traction,
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess that $180, you'd barely get a developer to answer an email for that. So it makes a lot of savings there. But if at any point you do get that, but without the setup that you have, how much it would be costing, whether it's an actual full-time person or something else, I'd love to know, because it always fascinates me just by how valuable these are for, like I said, not just for startups, but for established businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, out of the bat right now, during the end of last year, we had a person doing member service, and she was responsible by onboarding members and checking their subscription management stuff, sending out invoices, communicating this kind of stuff. And she was working, I think about something that's either 16 or 18 hours a week. And after she decided to leave because she was just finishing uni, she was starting another job, full-time gig. And we decided not to bring another person to do customer service in that respect. So we've all shared in between us the communication with the customers, because we think that's something really valuable for us right now, talking directly to the customer instead of having someone doing member service. And I think just by not having that role, we are already saving probably $500 a week or so. But of course, it took some time for us to automate. And of course, by having that person doing that job, we were able to map out what kind of actions she was taking that could be automated. And that was pretty much it. But we had to start with the mentality that we wanted to go no code from day one. So whenever we found actions and tasks that could be automated or performed using no code tools, we were able to do so because we already educated ourselves about what we could do with Zapier, what we could do with Coda, what we could do with Circle and ChargeBee, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
No worries, man. Anytime. You know what? I might just stop sharing my screen. That's better. I think that's pretty much it in terms of demoing some docs. We still have time until 1:15. So if anyone wants to ask questions, maybe just have a chat, introduce yourselves, maybe talk about any kind of no-code tools you guys are using as well. That would be cool.
I'll jump in. Oh, there you go. Who's that? Al, jump.
Oh, I was just going to introduce myself really quick. I'm actually from Coda, and one of the co-organizers of the No Code NYC meetup. So I'm based here in New York, and it's 9 p.m. here. And yeah, just wanted to thank Bernardo for showing his docs. We've been talking quite a bit over like LinkedIn and stuff about having him host this meetup, and really hope that we can do more stuff like this with the No Code Australia meetup in the future.
Nice. Thanks, man.
Al, what's the community like in New York for Coda?
Pre-pandemic, it was pretty strong. So we were doing these meetups in person are people familiar with the platform Bubble by any chance? Yeah. So I know the community manager there, and his office is like a really central location. We would have these, 75, 100 person meetups, talking about things, related to no code. We had tools coming into new companies coming to talk to us about what they're building. Interestingly, a lot of companies weren't based in New York. They would have like a few kind of satellite, like representatives in New York that would talk about what they were building. So a lot of companies from Europe, even some from Asia. I remember some group I remember talking to, they're passing through New York for some event, and they wanted to speak at the meetup. So it's definitely kind of been an interesting time before the pandemic, because we saw so many companies talking about what they're building. And then just in general, like the maker movement is really strong in New York too. So we saw a lot of people just talking about stuff they're building, companies with code, without code. So yeah, it was definitely really strong. But ever since, things moved online, we kind of lost that fire a little bit. So haven't had too many virtual meetups since the pandemic. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks for the heads up. I guess, Bernardo, on to your questions. I'll share with people what I'm doing. I'm working on a startup, my own startup, that I guess I'm using Adalo and Zapier a lot more than anything else. But really, I have zero coding background and very much from a sales and marketing and operations sort of background. So, I feel that this is the movement for me. As such, Leith and I and Beck sort of got together and thought, how can we share and sort of grow a community around it? But I'm continuing to see this area grow, and I didn't even know about Circle. I'm sort of looking at it now going, here's another one that I wasn't even aware of. So yeah, sort of really excited to see it continue to grow. Nice.
And what are the plans for the No Code meetup next year, Joe?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think probably like Al, I think we had some really good momentum prior to everything changing. And so, one of the things that we've very much spoken about is, now that it seems things are opening up, is very much putting a schedule together where we can get, like-minded people together, talk about new tools, sort of grow a community around it. I think, some of the real successes we saw, there's some really interesting things that people are already doing with it. So it's, it's learning from those and sort of like yourself, bringing in people who are using tools, understanding what stack they're using and what sort of benefit they're getting out of it, and sharing that sort of information so that people, I'm sure someone will reach out to you after this who sort of, I know there's some user cases I want to go through, but it's sort of nice to see how it's being used in a business versus just purely how it could be. Awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't have anything to do with organizing this particular thing, but I just wanted to jump in and talk about what my personal interests will be for the next year, because I'm actually interested in doing a bit of angel investing in the no-code space. I got accepted into the Airtree Ventures Scout program. And so over the next year, I'm hoping to get more involved in, just meeting anyone, who is doing interesting things in making the no-code platforms. Joel or Leith, if you, I know you guys do a lot of contract work and you're kind of on the ground working on, and so that includes either making the platforms or companies who are building interesting things that are venture scale with these no-code platforms. So companies that are, trying to scale and grow using a bubble platform because they've worked out that you don't necessarily need to build bespoke tech to build something of value. So if anyone knows of anything interesting like that, send them my way. Basically, the Scout program means that if I meet any of these people, like they're trying to build something, maybe, Joel, Leith, they are bootstrapping it, and I reckon that it's potentially something that is venture scale, then I can send it to Airtree and they will give me money to co-invest alongside them. If there's anything that you think might be a good fit for that, interested in tips from any of you.
Congrats, Beck. Yeah. How cool.
That's really exciting. Yeah, love it.
So hopefully that, I'm really excited about, like, you guys have been a part of the nascent no-code ecosystem and responsible for doing a lot of the building stuff. And so I'm excited for the opportunity to support some homegrown ventures and work alongside you guys, No Code Australia in particular, but anyone.
That's cool. Just conscious of time, I'll quickly sort of dive in from my side. Obviously, Joel and I have been working as we do with the projects, helping a number of people with ideas, start to build those out and show them ways that it can be done using no-code tools and not just for the MVP, but for later builds as well. Something I guess that I'm becoming more and more passionate about is not necessarily that 0 to 1, that person that has that idea that wants to build an MVP. It's about the larger businesses, about incorporating no code or that maker mentality into that larger corporate life. And as part of company that we're part of, it's something that I'm passionately pushing towards. I'm trying to bring in visual developers to sit between, like, bridge the gap between the traditional designers and the developers. Like, that idea that traditional model and how long things take to get into production is just ridiculous. Like, there should be something in between them, and the risk that you take by factoring all that engineering resource into something that is yet to be proven in the wild, it's something that can be done with a no-code tool, something that can be as close to production as you can possibly imagine, and therefore you get the best testing from it. So something I'm really passionate about. There's obviously not just the visual development side, but it's that ops side of it. So the business ops, the people that connect all the systems that a lot of these companies now run on, being able to have someone that can glue that all together, and whether it's via Zapier or Parabola or Integromat, any of those tools, and getting that data out of it is hugely fascinating. And then the last piece, as part of sort of a product strategy that I was building, I worked with some no-code data science tools. So I used them to build out a whole North Star framework where I was looking to identify what the product levers were that would later flow into an increase in ARR. And using these no-code tools, I was able to basically pull out all this massive amounts of data and calculate correlation between them using different machine learning algorithms that I would have no idea how to do personally. But I got a huge percentage of accuracy doing that. So that's something that is very exciting, and something that I think is that democratizing data science is something that's going to be a huge sort of on the increase in the next year or so.
Leith, I had a question on the first thing you mentioned about building these tools for internal business and operations teams. What has your, how successful have you been at, I guess, convincing teams to use no-code solutions for internal business processes? Sometimes a lot of pushback I get from, working at Coda, from talking to some teams is like, I don't really want to try this new tool. We know that Google Sheets and Excel works fine. Everyone else in our company is using it. So I don't really want to risk, using this tool if it doesn't work, or, my reputation's on the line. I'm curious how you've navigated that, that issue.
Yeah, sorry, just checking it's not me that's breaking up. I don't want to go on a rant and no one hears me. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so there definitely is pushback with it, but it's very easy to show value in it. It doesn't take a lot to give someone what Joel and I always talk about it, once you sort of enlighten someone with no code, it's like giving them a superpower. Eyes light up. I've been advising a startup that's come out of an accelerator program, and they were, they've got a CTO, and they were going to be building this MVP via full coded version. And I spent an hour with them, and within that, the whole strategy changed. They got to market a lot quicker. So I think doing that is a lot easier. And I think people are starting to, you don't have to go down the full no code route if you want. You can fit it into different parts of your workflow. During the initial parts of the pandemic, I helped advise one of the state governments. They were looking at they were quickly ramping a model because they'd had all these people made redundant, and how they were going to try and use their skills and map them to other roles. And so this person was helping, being tasked with building out and designing this platform for it. And they were using, Excel sheets or Airtables and stuff Excel sheets to initially do this. And so I worked with them to show them a few ways that it could be done and what this tool could look like. And it was the most rapid form of prototyping that you could possibly do, but it was fully functional, and it was something that they could take to their development team and say, this is what we want. And it just removed all those questions that they would have otherwise had with just static sort of designs, click-throughs and parts like that.
Gotcha. So yeah, it sounds like you have to kind of have the finished product or internal tool ready for them to look at, and it kind of has to look and feel like 90% of the way there before they can be like, okay, that looks great, let's just go with it. And then the tool kind of sells itself.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps to have something more polished, but I also think, there's ways it can be as simple as sending data from one piece to another, like a HubSpot integration via Zapier that sends an email at the same time and lets someone know. That's people, Zapier, and it is pretty infectious. Once you build your first Zap on it, then the world sort of opens up of what you can do. So I think it is just about unlocking that maker mentality in people, and most people do have it.
Great. Nicholas, Raja, or Lemel, is there anything you guys would like to, I guess, jump on and discuss? Just conscious of, including you guys in
it. Not much. It's just a first meetup I'm attending on this Coda tool, and I have attended a Bubbles boot camp recently, and finishing up on the coming Friday is the last session I'm going to have. I was just curious to understand how these no-code tools work. Yeah, so just trying to pick up my knowledge and understanding of how these things work, and being a traditional developer for the last 15 years, I'm quite curious to see where the future stands. And yeah, but still I'm going to explore more on Coda and see what it can do and how it is different and better in terms of Bubble or what other tools I have seen. So yeah, still pretty new, but quite keen to look forward to it.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me also, I was curious to hear about Coda because I didn't know what the tool was doing. And then I run a custom software development agency, and we're using more and more no-code tools recently, like intensely, I would say Airtable, Bubble, obviously Webflow as well. But the pure background of the company is React, serverless, and all this custom development. And you know, I just it makes me sad to have to invest 5 weeks to do a form, and so yeah, we're like, yeah, we're trying to see for each use case what is the best tool that we can leverage. And it's always hard to know exactly what are the limitations of one tool versus another one. So yeah, that was really insightful to see, you know, a real company using it and this use case. So thank you for that. And I'm based out of New York City, by the way, although my accent is not really from New York City, but New York City is full of accent, right?
That's right.
And Lamella, you online or? Yep. Maybe. Okay. Based on that, I'm probably the same as you, Nicholas. I think Bernardo and Al, that's a really good dive in there. It's given me enough, and probably Rajat, you're the same. It's given me enough to go, I think I want to jump in there and have a play myself, which is what this is all about. So thank you so much, I guess, for Bernardo for reaching out and Al for reaching out. I think this is really informative and actually starts my juice flowing of thinking I'd love to learn more and play around to see what I can do with it.
Awesome.
Maybe I just had one question for you, Leif. You mentioned AI and machine learning tools that you used. Can you mention a couple of them?
Yeah, so I guess the two biggest, well, probably the biggest one at the moment is obviously AI. I had issues with using that for my use case. So the one I used was actually called Aptio. I've got a feeling they might be out of New York. Shanif, I think he's he was like a lead data scientist from Twitter. He's like incredible, really nice guy, really approachable. I worked with him on the use case in it. But yeah, so Aptio, I think it's apteo.co, I think it's their website. And they actually were sunsetting the correlation feature that I was using, which was not ideal, but there's a heap of other stuff they've sort of focused on, as you know, as they should, as that start in that startup phase, focused on their sort of hero use cases. So they've got a really good model around helping predict churn in businesses or helping be able to predict certain things out of data. But highly advise it if people are looking for something around that area. And like I said, they're really approachable, really good guys. Oh, you're just on mute, Joel.
I'm the one in that meeting that does it. Great. Last chance, guys. Any more questions or do we wind it up? No?
All good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for attending, everyone. For the guys US-based, thanks for attending later. For the guys Australia, you know, good to get a break in your lunchtime. So thank you very much. We'll keep running these more regularly now that things are coming back to normal in Australia. But again, Bernardo and Al, thanks so much for putting this on for us.
Thanks,
you.
man.
Awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bernardo.
guys.
Thanks,
Always.
Bernardo. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
You guys. Bye.